Hi, everybody. This is Allison from Alley Cat Creations. How are you? Please like, share, and subscribe if you have yet to do so. And if you get anything from my work, a connect and a epiphany, a mind explosion, a new book to read, a new author to explore, please consider supporting my work. All the links are at the bottom of the description. Alley Cat Creations 211 is where you can find my artwork, skulls, pyramids, paintings, commission drawings, all kinds of stuff. And if you're interested in anything, please email me. I also have 3D memberships where you can get a membership and become a part of my channel. And members get free access to raffles, free entries, and there'll be giveaways in the future and events soon, member-only videos. Today I'm going to attempt to do the Secret Doctrine, pick up for where we left off on stanza 9. I am battling an infection. I'm on lots of supplements. Uh, it's nasally again. It's always hitting here. My nose is all red and raw. And I'm starting to like project it out in coughing wise. So I do apologize. I'm going to try to pause when I have a cough or a sneeze coming in. I do work with children, and these children don't know how to cover. So I'm hoping the hot coffee helps with all of this. The one, androgyny, became two. Also, all the living and creeping things that were still one, giant fish, birds, and serpents with shell heads. This relates evidently to the so-called age of the amphibious reptiles, during which ages science maintains that no man existed. But what could the ancients know of antediluvian prehistoric animals and monsters? Nevertheless, the book, sorry guys, 6 of the commentaries is found a passage which says, freely translated, when the third separated and fell into sin by breeding men animals, these, the animals, being furious, and men and they're mutually destructive. Till then, there was no sin, no life taken. After the separation, the Sata Yuga was at an end. The eternal spring became constant change, and seasons succeeded. Cold forced men to build shelters and devise clothing. Then men appealed to the superior fathers, the higher gods or angels. The Nirmakaya of the Nagas, the wise serpents and dragons of light, came, and the precursors of the enlightened Buddhas. Divine kings descended and taught men science and arts, for men could live no longer in the first land. Adi Varasha, the Eden of the first race, which had turned into a white frozen corpse. The above is suggested. We will see what can be inferred from this brief statement. Some may be inclined to think that there is more in it than apparent at first sight. Once the idea and the true meaning of the term Eden, Christians will maintain that the Garden of Eden is a holy paradise, the place desecrated by the sin of Adam and Eve. The occultists will deny this dead letter interpretation and show the reverse. One need not believe and see in the Bible divine revelation in order to say that this ancient book, if read esoterically, is based upon the same universal traditions. What Eden is partially shown in Isis Unveiled. It was said that the Garden of Eden as a locality is no myth at all. It belongs to those landmarks of history which occasionally disclose to the student that the Bible is not all mere allegory. Eden, or the Hebrew Gan Eden, meaning the park or the Garden of Eden, is an archaic name of the country watered by the Euphrates and its many branches from Asia and Armenia to the Aetherian Sea. In the Chaldean Book of Numbers, the location is designated in numerals, and in the cipher Rosicrucian manuscript left by Count Saint Germain, it is fully described. In the Assyrian tablets, it is rendered Gan Duyas. Behold, says the Elohim of Genesis, the man is become as one of us. The Elohim may be accepted in one sense for gods or powers, and another for Elohim or priests, the Hierophants initiated into the good and evil of this world. For there was a college of priests called the Elam, while the head of their caste or the chief of the Hierophants was known as Java Elam. Instead of becoming a neophyte and gradually obtaining his esoteric knowledge through a regular initiation, an Adam or man uses his intuitional faculties and, prompted by the serpent, woman, and matter, tastes of the tree of knowledge, the esoteric and secret doctrine unlawfully. The priests of Hercules, or Melkuth, the Lord of the Eden, are war coats of skin. The text says in Java Alam, made for Adam and his wife. I don't know. Shitanuth are. The first Hebrew word shaitan is the Greek shaitan. It became a Slavic word by adoption from the Bible that means coat, an upper garment. Though containing the same substratum of esoteric truth as does every early cosmogony, the Hebrew scriptures wears on its face the marks of a double origin. Its genesis is purely a reminiscence of the Babylonian captivity. The names of places, men, and even objects can be traced from the original text to the Chaldeans and the Akkadians, the progenitors and Aryan instructors of the former. It is strongly contested that the Akkad tribes of Chaldea, Babylonia, and Assyria were in any way cognate with the Brahmins of Hindustan, but there are more proofs in favor of this opinion than otherwise. The Shemite or Assyrian ought, perchance, to have been called the Turanian, and the Mongolians have been denominated Sits. But if the Akkadians ever existed, otherwise, then in the imagination of some ethnologists, it's worse when I'm sick. I can't project. And philologists, you guys know what I'm saying. They certainly would never have been a Turanian tribe, as some Assyriologists have striven to make us believe. They were simply immigrants on their way to Asia Minor from India, the cradle of humanity, and their sacerdotal adepts tarried to civilize and initiate a barbarian people. Havely proved the fallacy of the Turanian people, the Turanian mania in regard to Akkadian people, and other scientists have proved that the Babylonian civilization was neither born nor developed in that country. It was imported from India, and the importers were the Brahminical Hindus. And now, 10 years after this was written, we find ourselves corroborated by Professor Sayce, who says in his first Herbert lecture that the culture of the Babylonian city Eridu was a foreign importation and came from India. Much of the theology was borrowed from the Semites, from the non-Semitic Akkadians or Proto-Chaldeans, whom they supplanted and whose local cults they had neither the will nor the power to uproot. Indeed, throughout a long course of ages, the two races, Semites and Akkadians, lived side by side, their notions and worship of the gods blending insensibly together. Here the Akkadians are called non-Semitic, as we have insisted they were in ISIS, which is another collaboration. And we are no less right in always maintaining that the Jewish biblical history was a compilation of historical facts arranged from the other people's history in Jewish garb, Genesis excluded, which is esotericism pure and simple. But it is really from the Exene to Kashmir and beyond that science has to search for the cradle, or rather one of their chief cradles of mankind and the sons of Ada, and especially in after times when the Garden of Eden on the Euphrates became the college of the astrologers and magi, the Alim. But this college and this Eden belong to the fifth race and are simply a faint remnants of the Andi Varasha of the primeval third race. What is the etymological meaning of the word Eden? In Greek, it is the signifying voluptuousness. In this aspect, it is no better than the Olympus of the Greeks, Indra's heaven, Swaraj, or Mount Meru, and even the paradise full of Horus promised by Muhammad to the faithful. The Garden of Eden was never the property of the Jews, for China, which can hardly be suspected of having known anything of the Jews, 2000 BC, has such a primitive garden in Central Asia inhabited by the dragons of wisdom, the initiates, and according to Proth, the hieroglyphical chart copied by a Japanese cyclopedia in the book of Fo Konkei, sorry, I'm butchering shit, places its garden of wisdom on the plateau of Pamir between the highest peaks of the Himalayan ranges and describing it as a culminating point of Central Asia, shows the four rivers Ox, Indus, Ganges, and Silo, following from a common source, the Lake of the Dragons. But this is not the genetic Eden, nor is it the Kabbalistic Garden of Eden. For the former Eden, Ilah, means, in one sense, wisdom, a state like that of nirvana, a paradise of bliss, while in another sense it refers to an intellectual man himself, the container of the Eden in which grows the tree of knowledge of good and evil, man being the knower thereof. Renan and Bartholomew St. Hilaire, basing themselves on the most solid inductions, think it's impossible to doubt any longer, and both place the cradle of humanity on the region of the thymus. Finally, the Asiatic Journal concludes that all the traditions of the human race gathering its primitive families at the region of both their birthplace show them to us, grouped around the countries where Jewish tradition places the Garden of Eden, where the Aryan Zoroastrians established their Aryan Virgo, or the Meru. They are all hemmed in the north by the countries which join the Lake Ariel, and to the south by Bastion or Little Tibet. Everything concurs in proving that there was the abode of the primitive humanity to which we have to be traced. The primitive humanity was in its fifth race when the four-mouthed dragon, the lake of which very few traces are now left, was the abode of the sons of wisdom, the first mind-born sons of the third race. Yet it was neither the only one nor the primitive cradle of humanity, though it was a copy of the cradle, verily, of the first thinking divine man. It was the Pradesa, the highland of the first Sanskrit-speaking people, the Hedon, the country of delight of the Greeks, but it was not the bower of tumultuousness of the Chaldeans, for the latter was the only reminiscent of it, and also because it was not there that the fall of man occurred after the separation. The Eden of the Jews was copied from the Chaldean copy. that the fall of man into generation occurred during the earliest proportion of what science calls the Mesozoic times, or the age of the reptiles, is evidenced by the biblical phraseology concerning the serpent, the nature of which is explained in the Zohar. The question is not whether Eve's incident with the tempting reptile is allegorical or textual, for no one can doubt that it is former, but to show the antiquity of the symbolism of the very face of it, and that it was not only a Jewish, but an universal idea. Now we find that the Zohar, a very strange assertion, one that is calculated to provoke the reader to merry laughter by its ludicrous absurdity. It tells us that the serpent which was used by Shemel, the supposed Satan, to seduce Eve was a kind of flying camel. A flying camel is indeed too much for the most liberal-minded FRS. Nevertheless, the Zohar, which can hardly be expected to use the language of a clever, was right in its description, for we find it called in the old Zoroastrian MISS Ashmag, which in the Vesta is represented as having lost after the fall its nature and its name, and it is described as a huge serpent with a camel's neck. There are no winged serpents nor venerable dragons, assertates Salvert, however you pronounce his name. Grasshoppers are called by the Greeks winged serpents, and this metaphor may be created several narratives on the existence of winged serpents. There are none now, but there is no reason why there should not have existed during the Mesozoic age, and Culver, who has reconstructed their skeletons, is a witness to flying camels. Already after finding simple fossils of certain saurians, the great naturalists have written that if anything can justify the Hydra and other monsters whose figures were so often repeated by medieval historians, it is incontestable the Plesiosaurus. We are unaware if Clever had added anything in the way of to further mea culpa, but we may well imagine his confusion for all his slanders against archaic veracity when he found himself in the presence of a flying saurian, the pterodactyl, found in Germany, 78 feet long and varying vigorous wings attached to its reptilian body. The fossil is described as a reptile, the little fingers of which hands are so elongated as to bear a long membranous wing. Here then the flying camel of the Zohar is vindicated, for surely between the long neck of the Plesiosaurus and the membranous wings of the pterodactyl, or still better, the Mosasaurus, there is enough scientific probability to build a flying camel or a long-necked dragon. Professor Cope of Philadelphia has shown that the Mesosaurus fossil in the chalk was a winged serpent of this kind. There are characters in its vertebrae which indicate union with the Orphidea rather than with the Lactilia. Jesus, I'm struggling, guys. And now to the main question. It is very well known that antiquity has never claimed paleontography and paleontology among its arts and sciences, and it never has had its curvers. Yet on Babylonian tiles, and especially in old Chinese and Japanese drawings, in the oldest pagodas and monuments, and in the Imperial Library at Pekin, many a traveler has seen and recognized perfect representations of plesiosauri and pterodactyls in the multi-form Chinese dragons. Moreover, the prophets speak in the Bible of the flying fiery serpents, and Job mentions Leviathan. Now the following questions are put very directly. How could the ancient nations know anything of the extinct monsters of the Carbon Inferius Mesiotic times and even represent and describe them orally and pictorially unless they had either seen these monsters themselves or possessed descriptions of them in their traditions, which descriptions necessitate living and intelligent eyewitness? And if such eyewitnesses are once admitted, unless retrospective clairvoyance is granted, how can humanity in the first Paleolithic men be no earlier than about the middle of the Tertiary period? We must bear in mind that the most of the men of science will not allow men to have appeared before the Quaternary period, and thus shut them out completely from the Synzozoic times. Here we have extinct species of animals which disappeared from the face of the earth millions of years ago, described by and known to nations whose civilization, it is said, could hardly have begun a few thousand years ago. How is this? Evidently, either the Mesiotic time has to be made to overlap the Quaternary period, or men must be made the contemporary of the pterodactyl and the plesiosaurus. It does not stand to reason because the occultists believe in and defend ancient wisdom and science, even though winged saurians are called flying camels in the translations of the Zohar that we believe as readily in all the stories which the Middle Ages give us of such dragons. Pterodactyls and plesiosaurus cease to exist with the bulk of the third race. When, therefore, we are gravely asked by the Roman Catholic writers to credit Christopher Schreyer's and Father Kircher's cock and bull stories of their having seen with their own eyes living fiery flying dragons, respectively in 1619 and 1669. We may regard otherwise than as a poetical license that other story told by Plutarch, who, while following one day his Laura in the woods and passing near a cave, is credited with having found a dragon, whom he forthwith stabbed with his dagger and killed, thus preventing the monster from devouring the lady of his heart. We would willingly believe the story had Plutarch lived in the days of Atlantis, when such antediluvian monsters may still have existed. We deny their existence in our present era. The sea serpent is one thing, the dragon quite another. The former is denied by the majority because it exists and lives in the very depths of the ocean, is very scarce, and rises to the surface only when compelled, perhaps by hunger. Thus, keeping invisible, it may exist and still be denied. But if there was such a thing as a dragon of the above description, how could it have ever escaped detection? It is a creature contemporary with the earliest fifth race and exists no more. The reader may inquire, why we speak of dragons at all. We answer firstly because the knowledge of such animals is a proof of the enormous antiquity of the human race. And secondly, to show the difference between the zoological meaning of the word dragon, naga, and serpent, and the metaphorical one, when used symbolically. The profane reader who knows nothing of the mystery language is likely, whenever he finds one of these words mentioned, to accept it literally. Sorry, guys, I am heavily struggling, but I want to get a reading out. Hence, the queep. I'm going to skip that word. And unjust acquisitions. A couple of instances will suffice. Said et serpens, but what was the nature of the serpent? Mystics intuitionally. I'm just going with this, guys. I'm like done with myself. See in the serpent of Genesis an animal emblem and a high spiritual essence, a cosmic force, super super intelligent, a great fallen light, a spiritual sidereal, Ariel, and Tellurian at the same time, whose influence circumambulates the globe. As a Christian fanatic of the dead letter has it, and which only manifested itself under the physical emblem, which was the most convenient with respect to its moral and intellectual coils, under the Orphidian form. But what will Christians make of the brazen serpent, the divine healer? If the serpent is to be regarded as the emblem of cunning and evil, the evil one itself, how can the line of demarcation ever be settled when it is traced arbitrarily in a sectarian theological spirit? For if the followers of the Roman Church are taught that Mercury and Asclepius or Asclepios, who are in truth one, are devils and sons of the devils, and the wand and serpent of the latter were the devil's wand, how about the brazen serpent of Moses? Every scholar knows that both the heathen wand and the Jewish serpent are one and the same, namely the caduceus of Mercury, son of Apollo Pathion. It is easy to comprehend why the Jews adopted the Ophidian shape for their seducer. With them, it was purely physiological and phallic, and no amount of causic reasoning, I'm just my brain, guys, I'm sorry, on the part of the Roman Catholic Church can give it another meaning. Once that the mystery language is well studied and the Hebrew scrolls are read numerically, the occultists know that the serpent, the Naga, and the dragon have each a serpentary meaning, that the sun, for instance, was the astronomical and cosmic emblem of the two concentrated lights, and the two serpents of the Gnostics, the good and the evil one. They also knew that when generalized, the conclusions of both science and theology present two most ridiculous extremes. For when the former tells us that it is sufficient to trace the legends of the serpents to their primal source, the astrological legend, and to meditate seriously on the sun, conqueror of Python, and the celestial virgin in the zodiac forcing back the devouring dragon, it would have the key of all the subsequent religious dogmas. It is easy to perceive that instead of generalizing, the author simply has his eye on Christian religion and revelation. We call this one extreme. The other we see in this, when repeating the famous decision of the Council of Trent, theology seeks to convince the masses that from the fall of man until the hour of his baptism, the devil has full power over him and possesses him by right. To this occult philosophy answers, prove first the existence of the devil as an entity, and then we may believe in such congenital possession. A very small amount of observation and knowledge of human nature may be sufficient to prove the fallacy of the theological dogma. Had Satan any reality in the objective or even subjective world, in the ecclesiastical sense, it is the poor devil who would find himself chronologically obsessed and even possessed by the wicked, hence by the bulk of mankind. It is humanity itself, and especially the clergy, headed by the haughty, unscrupulous, and intolerant Roman Church, which have begotten, given birth to, and reared in love in the evil one. But this is a digression. The whole world of thought is reproached by the Church with having adorned the serpent. The whole of humanity incensed and at the same time stoned it. The Zen Avesta speaks of it as the kings and Vedas do, as the Edda and the Bible. Everywhere, the sacred serpent, the Naga, and its shrine and its priest. In Rome, it is the Vestal who prepares its meal with the same care as she bestows on the sacred fire. In Greece, Asclepius cannot cure without its assistance and delegates to it its powers. Everyone has heard of the famous Roman embassy sent by the Senate to the god of medicine and its return with the not less famous serpent, which proceeded of its own will and by itself toward its master temple on one of the islands of Tiber, not of Bacchant, that did not wind the serpent in her hair, not an Agor, but questioned it oracly, saying it, that word, not a necromancer whose tomb is free from its presence. The Canaanites and the Orphites call it creator, while recognizing, as Schilling did, the serpent is evil in substance and its personification. Sorry, guys, I am doing my best not to have a coughing fit. Trying to get words out that my mouth is not going out. It's very frustrating. Very, very frustrating. I do apologize. It's embarrassing. Not necessarily like I'm embarrassed, but like it's not, but I don't even look like myself today. Crazy times. Hang on. Yes, the author is right, and if one would have a complete idea of the prestige which the serpent enjoys to our own day, one ought to study the matter of India and learn all that is believed about and still attributed to the Nagas, cobras, in that country. One should also visit the Africans of Whydah and the Voodoos of Port-au-Prince in Jamaica, the Nagals of Mexico, and the Pa, or men serpents of China. But why wonder that the serpent is adored and at the same time cursed, since we know from the beginning it was a symbol? In every ancient language, the word dragon signifies what it now does in Chinese, lang, the being who excels in intelligence, and in Greek, or he who sees and watches. And it is to the animal of that name that any of these epithets could apply. It is not evident wherever superstition and oblivion of the primitive meaning may have led savages now, that it said qualifications were intended to apply to the human or the human originals who were symbolized by serpents and dragons. These originals, called to this day in China the dragons of wisdom, were the first disciples of the Dhyanis, who were their instructors. In short, the primitive adepts of the third race and later on the fourth and fifth races. The name became universal, and no sane man before the Christian era would ever have confounded the man and the symbol. The symbol of Xenophis, I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that right. I could care fucking less at this moment. Or the soul of the world, writes Champlain, is among others that of the enormous serpent standing on human legs, the reptile, the emblem of the good genius, is a venerable agathodemon. It is also represented bearded. That sacred animal, identical with the serpent of the Orphites, is found engraved on numerous Gnostic and Balestinian stones. The serpent has various heads, but is constantly inscribed with the letters, it's Greek. Agathodemon was endowed with the knowledge of good and evil, with the divine wisdom, as without the form of the letter is impossible. Repeating Imblicus, Champlain shows him to be the deity called, I don't know how to read Greek, or the fire of the celestial gods, the great Thoth, to whom Hermes Trismegistus attributes the invention of magic. I'm going to leave it here, guys. My favorite number, 211. I wanted to get this out because I think it's really interesting. But I keep having coughing fits and I need to take more supplements and hope I can project this out of me. Um, make some tea before I go to sleep. So I do apologize. It's very frustrating when you can't pronounce things and the things that you can know, you know that you can pronounce doesn't want to come out because you are going to cough a lung up. And no, it's not because of this. Um, I just have kids that come to school sick constantly and their parents just don't give a shit. Um, and I hope that the teas, the honeys that I've been doing, it has been getting it out, but my God, can't focus. And I'm starting to lose my voice as I can see it. So I'm gonna end here. I don't know how long this is gonna be. I hope it's worth re I might have to do it again. Let's just put it that way. But for now, I made my effort. I put my effort out. That's the key. I'm trying to be consistent. Last week sucked, and this week is I'm sick. So I hope that you got something out of it. Do you believe in dragons? I do. I think they created this universe. Thankfully, I only have 2 more days left of work until the weekend and I can rest. Um, um, now I know where I'm at. I do apologize, but like some of these, I do smaller versions of the work, and hopefully next time I am able to project my words properly, not have to pause a million times for sneezing, blowing my nose, or coughing my brains out, and then like getting my mouth to move. So sending each and every one of you love, light, compassion, grace, shielding, and protective energy. Please go within. Be the shoulder. Be the lighthouse. Seed your truths. And I hope to see you all in the next one. I could do way better, and I know that. I'm a harsh critic of my own self. Um, but this is what happens when you consistently have purge happening. Until the next one, guys, please don't forget to like. I can't blame you if you don't. But subscribe to my channel. I have a lot of good stuff on there, things that will expand your mind. This book is one of expansion that many people just disregard because of the Theosophical label, but she has a lot of brilliant things to say, and you might not agree with everything, but there's some good tidbits in there to challenge your thinking. So at most, let it challenge you. Until the next one, guys, have a blessed and beautiful day. Bye for now.